How's it going, everybody? This is Jeff Manning with Team Real in the Blues. Reason why I'm making this video is to try to save some people the headaches that I just got done having to deal with. Well, the issue I had was, right now I've got a 2015 Suzuki. It's a 140. Never had a lick of trouble out of the fuel. It's always had good speed. It's always run really nice. Well, the other day it sat for over the first part of the summer because I was busy. But anyway, the other day I took it out on the lake. Everything was running fine. I'm running about 45 miles an hour, and all of a sudden the motor just almost stops. Starts missing, chugging like it was starving to death for fuel. Well, first thing went through my head, something's wrong with the motor. No fault codes came on, nothing like that. Well, anyway, I got it back home. Took about 2 hours of trolling. Finally got it back home. When I got back home, I pulled the fuel filter, and sure enough, when I pulled the fuel filter, there was a bunch of little pieces of plastic inside the fuel filter. I said, well, that's not a good sign. So I checked the primer bulb, and what had happened, the inside of the primer bulb literally self-destructed. The little valve that goes that keeps the flow going one direction had went bad. Well, those little pieces of plastic had pretty much got everywhere in the system. Well, I noticed the time before when I took the motor out that it ran fine. I had pretty good speed, but it seemed to be lacking a little bit on the top end. It was running around 5,500. I couldn't get it much over that. Normally I can get it all the way up to 6,200 or so. Well, I started thinking, well, maybe it was that plastic from that primer bulb. So anyway, this is where the whole thing started. So this whole chain of events happened just from me not using the boat for about 4 months during the summer. Well, so I started pulling the systems apart, took the primer bulb off, put a new primer bulb on. Thought, well, heck, if I'm going to replace the primer bulb, I'm going to replace the hose that the primer bulb was hooked to. So I replaced the hose all the way from the fuel water separator all the way to the internal filter that's built into the motor. And if you look right here, it's kind of hard to see, but right here's the filter. This is actually a water filter also. It's got a little float in here, so when the water gets up too high, it'll cut the thing off. It sets off an alarm and tells you that you've got too much water in your system. Well, anyway, I replaced that, put a new filter in it, put a new fuel water separator in it, but then I primed the bulb up and it still felt kind of weird. I thought, well, okay, so I primed. Finally got it primed up good. Motor started and ran fine at idle. So I know my filter was completely clogged up with these little pieces of plastic from the primer bulb. But what I didn't know was that my fuel lines have been compromised also from the alcohol in the fuel. So I'm going to show you what happened. So I unplugged all the fuel lines. I put in my new fuel filter. I plugged my fuel lines back up. That's what you should do. I shouldn't have had to worry about it. Took it to the lake, ran better, but then all of a sudden, same thing. Started missing like it was starving to death for fuel. Come back, said, well, there's somewhere else. So thought maybe some of the plastic got into the actual fuel line. So I pulled the fuel line off. When I pulled the fuel line off this time, I went to go blow through it. Nothing came out of it. So automatically I go, hey, piece of the plastic got into the fuel line and it had it blocked off. But here's what actually had happened. So I unplugged the fuel line to take and change the fuel filter. Well, when I plugged the fuel line back on, little did I know that the liners in these gray pipe had pretty much broke free from the actual pipe. So here's what happened. I'm gonna split it. Are you ready? Here's what we got. You can see the liner is completely loose. It ain't supposed to be, but if you'll notice, see how that's smashed flat? The reason why that's smashed flat, because the fuel had it still nice and gummy. When I went to plug it up, see, you look at this, it looks fine, but when I went to plug it up, it actually just balled that inner liner up, blocking that out. You'll notice that's almost completely sealed. There's no way any fuel is getting through there, and there's no way without me taking this loose and actually cutting it that I could have seen that, because if you'll notice, it's that far back. It's all the way to the end of the nipple. So I thought, oh wow, so I found the problem. Well, pulled the other fuel lines off, the one coming from the fuel tank to a switch in there. Pulled that fuel line off. The minute I pulled the gray pipe off, that was still stuck on the nipple. This one had come completely loose. You can see, this is the liner they put inside those fuel lines. This is supposed to be alcohol resistant. Problem is, it starts losing its adhesion inside the pipe. When it does, it just starts sucking this down. Any kind of obstruction on the top end, it collapses this and it actually balls it up in a ball. You can see this piece, you can see where I cut it. There's the plastic liner, you can see it moving. I'm not saying this ain't good hose. I'm sure it is, but I'm just giving this piece of advice to everybody out there. This fuel line's only about 2.5 years old. So now, part of my normal routine when I take and work on this motor, you can better believe I'll be putting new fuel lines on it at least every 2 years. Luckily, it didn't strand me out in the middle of the lake in the winter time at night, but see, it's still, you can see right here, see the liner's coming loose. I could literally cut this and pull this liner right out. Shouldn't be able to do that. Alright, this is just an FYI. I hope I saved somebody some headaches that I had to deal with. Watch these gray lines. I know they're made for ethanol, but be careful with them. From now on, this is going to be part of my normal maintenance routine. I will be changing my fuel lines at least every 2 years. Alright, thank you for watching. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Any comments also, and I'll try to get back with you as soon as I can. Thank you.